Okay, we're going to do rational equations today. And let me just get a pen here that I can write with. Okay. So, rational equations. Whoops, I wanted that one. Okay, rational equations. Rational means fraction, and we're going to have equations. So back in algebra and geometry, you might have had a little equation like this to solve. That's great. Say goodbye to the fun days, because we're going to change it up now, and maybe we're going to make it into something like that. We're going to start adding fractions in, and we're going to have variables on the denominator and in the numerator, and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so here we are. We're going to start off with a baby one. And there are two ways to do this. Way one or way two. And I don't care which way you pick, whichever makes more sense to you. I prefer the second way, and you probably will too once you see it. Well, the first way is just to go by our math laws. This is asking us to subtract these two fractions. So do you say to yourself, well, that means I got to find a common denominator. All right, I have 2x over 10 minus x over 10 equals 7. Okay, now I can subtract them. So 2x over 10 minus x over 10 is x over 10. Okay, I can still solve this. To get the x alone, I undo the division by multiplying both sides by 10. And I get x is 70. Now, as usual, this is an equation, and we should always check our answers. So I'll do a quick check, and you should always do a quick check on a calculator. Don't necessarily need to see the visual check. Let's see, 70 divided by 5 is 14. 70 divided by 10 is 7. Does 14 minus 7 equal 7? Absolutely. Okay, the way I like is the second way. And that's because when we get into a little more complex fractions, especially ones that have denominators and numerators filled with algebraic expressions, it makes it a lot easier. So my way too is to multiply each term by the least common denominator. I call this the Oprah way. And the reason why is, do you remember, I don't know, whenever she went off TV 4 or 5 years ago, she gave everybody in her audience a car. And that was the joke. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. Well, when we multiply each term by the LCD, we have to say, you get a common denominator, and you get a common denominator, and you get a common denominator. So every term has to get multiplied by the common denominator. What happens here is this denominator can cancel out with this, and we're left with 2x. This denominator can cancel out with this, and we're just left with x. And then we're left with 70 times, 7 times 10, which is 70, and notice we get our same answer. Okay, example 2. Way 1 is good old-fashioned mathematics. You may look at this and say, hey, this is what we did the other day. This is a proportion, so I can cross multiply. You're absolutely right, you can. So if I cross multiply here, I get 2x plus 10 equals 3x. I'll solve. X is 10. I'm going to do a quick check. Because it is an equation. And yes, does 10 over 15 equal 2/3? Absolutely. Way 2 would be to multiply by the least common denominator. And in this case, the least common denominator would be the 3 from one fraction and the x plus 5 from the other fraction. I'm making that big soup like we did a couple of sections ago. So this side gets multiplied by 3x plus 5, and then this term gets multiplied by 3 times x plus 5. We're doing the Oprah. Cancel out. We're left with 3x. Cancel out. We're left with 2x plus 10, because remember we have to distribute. And it's the same as over there. And we get the same answer. X equals 10. X equals 10. Again, it's up to you. This is where multiplying by the least common denominator to every term, the Oprah way, really pays off. It makes this problem, which seems very difficult, quite easy. Right, so here I have it written again. But I have to inspect the terms. And I have to find a least common denominator. And automatically my eye is taken to this 9b squared minus 4. Because immediately I understand that that can get factored into 3b plus 2, whoops, and 3b minus 2. So that is my common denominator. Because look, this one has the 3b plus 2, this one has the 3b minus 2. So that's what my common denominator is. That's what I'm going to multiply everybody by. So I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to rewrite it again. This time I'm going to take my common denominator over here. I'm going to do a little dressing up on it so it looks nice. Put some parentheses around it so it's offset. And then I'm actually going to change that to white so it stands out. Put some parentheses around this one. Let's change that so it stands out. Those together, and the first term gets a least common denominator. The second term gets a least common denominator. And the third term gets a least common denominator. Now, I know these can't be written, but they're really fractions, and they're getting multiplied, and they're over 1. So this denominator of 3b minus 2 cancels out with this new numerator of 3b minus 2. And this 3b plus 2 cancels out with this 3b plus 2. And here's where the beauty is. 9b squared minus 4 gets factored down into 3b minus 2 and 3b plus 2, so it cancels out. And I'm left with 12b plus 8 minus 21b plus 14, right? I'm distributing a negative. So a negative and a negative is going to get me a positive, and 7 times 2 is 14, and that equals 1. All right, so let's put this all together. 12b, take away 21b. It's negative 9b. 8 plus 14 is a positive 22. Negative 9b equals negative 21. B equals 21 over 9 when I divide through, and that reduces down to 7/3. So yes, we're getting ugly answers now to ugly problems. So let's take a second to make sure that this all checks. All right, I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go on to a new page. And let's change our pen now to black. All right, so I've got 4 over 3 minus 2. But remember, we're going to put in our new answer of 7/3 minus 7 over 3. And in our parentheses, we're going to put in our 7/3. Whoops, I wanted that to be black pen. Equals 1 over 9. And we'll put our 7/3 in. And tomorrow I'll show you a shortcut so you don't have to do all this checkout by hand on your calculator. So over here, the 3's cancel. I'm left with 7 minus 2 on the bottom, so that's 5. So that's 4/5 minus the 3's cancel. I'm left with 9 on the bottom, 7. Over here, I can't cancel because I have to square before I can cancel. So this becomes 9 times 49 over 9. Now the 9's can cancel, and 49 minus 4 is 45. Okay, now I'm going to razzle-dazzle you with my short way to find common denominators. That's 45. That's 36. That's 35. Does 36 minus 35 gets me 1 over 45 equals 1 over 45. Woohoo! So yes, boys and girls, our 7/3 was our final answer.